Hello, mathematicians. Today we are going to be learning how to multiply a fraction and a mixed number, and a fraction and a whole number. And I'm so excited that I get to teach this to you today because obviously it's been a long time since I've been able to do that. So first of all, what you should have found in your Google Classroom was a series of slides that have some helpful posters. So I'm going to pull those up real quick so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Give me just a second here. And what you should have seen in your Google Classroom was these posters. So you should have seen these posters that give you step-by-step directions on how to, in this case, this one's a multiply a fraction and a whole number. This one is multiplying two fractions. And then the third one was multiplying mixed numbers. Please refer back to those and this video as you go through the practice problems together to help you get a better understanding of how this process works. So today what I'm going to do is share several live examples with you so you can see how this works. It's super easy, and if you know your multiplication facts and if you know how to multiply and simplify fractions, you should be good to go. So I'm actually going to pull up a whiteboard here on the screen, and I'm going to be able to demonstrate some problems to you on that whiteboard. So to multiply a fraction and a fraction, you first need to decide which fractions you want to use. So let's go ahead and use the fraction 2/3, and we're going to multiply that by 1/5, okay? The beautiful thing about multiplying fractions is that unlike with adding and subtracting, you do not need a common denominator. These two numbers do not need to be the same. So that eliminates one of the steps that we had to do with adding and subtracting. Now with multiplying fractions, it's as easy as this. You're going to multiply your two numerators. So in this case, you're going to multiply 2 times 1. Then you're going to multiply your two denominators, in this case 3 times 5. Multiply both of those, so 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So we end up getting an answer of 2/15. Of course, the last thing you want to do is check this final answer to make sure if it is simplified or not. And we know we can't take anything out of both 2 and 15. So this is indeed your final answer. How easy is that? Let me clear this off. Let's try another one. Let's say we're taking the fraction 7/9 times 2/3. Okay, so once again, we're going to look at our numerators. You do not have to have common denominators, so we're going to look at our numerators. So 7 times 2, hopefully you remember that fact. 9 times 3. So now 7 times 2 is 14. Sorry about that. And 9 times 3 is 27. Let's look back at 14/27 to make sure that there's nothing we can simplify it down to. If I look at 14 and 27, they do not have any common factors. Therefore, 14/27 is going to be your final answer. Okay, let's clear all that. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at how you would do a mixed number by a mixed number. A mixed number and a mixed number, there's a little more work involved, but it is still going to be fairly easy. So let's take the mixed number 1 1/3, and let's multiply that by 2 3/5. Okay, so again, just like with fractions, we're not worried about getting common denominators. What we are going to need to do, though, with mixed numbers is we're going to need to turn these into improper fractions. So if you remember back to when we first started fractions, to make this into an improper fraction, I have to multiply the denominator by the whole number. That answer, I'm going to add the numerator, and that then is going to go over my current denominator. So in this case, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so that comes out to be 4/3. 2 3/5, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13, so we end up with 13/5. Now from here, we're going to do what we just did with multiplying a fraction by a fraction. So to get my answer, I'm going to do 4 times 13. Then I'm going to do 3 times 5. So 4 times 13, if you need to calculate that off on the side, that's fine. But I know that 4 times 13 is 52. And I know 3 times 5 is 15. So we end up getting 52/15. Now, we can see that that's improper. So of course we have to fix that. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. Remember, one way you can do that is simply to set up a division problem. So in this case, we'd set up 52 divided by 15, and we'd go through and solve that like we know how to do. So 15 will go into 52 3 times for 45. Subtract, I get 7. There's nothing else to bring down, so 7 becomes my numerator, 15 becomes my denominator, so we end up getting 3 7/15. The other way to do that is, for those of you that are good with mental math, you can take and look at how many times will 15 go into 52, count by 15s, you know that that's 3, and you end up getting a total of 45. Take 45 away from that 52, and that gave you that 7 and then 15ths. And then of course, again, the last thing you're going to want to do is look to see if 7/15 is simplified. They do not share a common factor, so 3 7/15 is your final answer. So multiplying a mixed number by a mixed number does involve a little extra work, but it's still pretty easy. Let me clear that. Let's try another one. This time, let's make it 3 1/4 times 2 2/3. Okay. First thing we want to do is fix this. So this is going to become 13/4. Remember, take 4 times 3 plus 1. Then I'm going to get 8/3 here. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So now I'm going to multiply across numerators. In this case, 13 times 8 across my numerators. 4 times 3 across my denominators. So 13 times 8, I'm actually going to calculate that off on the side here. Boy, writing on this screen with my finger is not very neat. So that gives me 104. I got a problem with my screen right here. 104. That should be 104. 12ths. Must be something on my screen. I'm not able to write on it. So we get 104/12. Now, we know that that is improper. So of course, now we have to go back and fix it. So I'm going to have to take 104 divided by 12. So let me do a little bit of erasing here. Give me some more room. Okay, so 104 divided by 12. I know 12 won't go into 1, it won't go into 10. So how many times will it go into 104? Well, I know 12 times 9 is 108. That's too much. Let's try times 8, which gives me 96. And doing some simple math, I get 8 left over. So that's going to end up being 8 8/12. So 8 8/12. Now let's look at our 8/12, and we can see that 8/12, I can take out a 4 from each of those, so I can divide out a 4, which if I do that is going to give me a 2 on the top and a 3 on the bottom. So my real answer then becomes 8 2/3. Okay. Pretty easy peasy. I'd say mixed numbers by mixed numbers are probably the hardest because there's so much work involved in terms of doing long division and making sure things are simplified at the end. But you know, you guys are good math kids. I know that you'll be able to figure that out with no problem whatsoever. So one more example is what happens when you have a whole number thrown in and either a fraction or a mixed number. So I'm going to do just a couple quick examples for that, and then I will wrap it up and you will have time to do some practice on your own. So let's say we had 4 times 3/8. Okay, 4 is not a fraction when we look at it, but technically it is. we can make this a fraction by simply placing a 1 underneath of it. Because remember, 4 is the same thing as 4 whole, which is the same thing as 4 divided by 1. 4 divided by 1. So therefore, 4 over 1 is the same thing as 4. So any whole number we can make into a fraction by putting a 1 underneath of it. So 3 technically is the same thing as 3 over 1. 99 is the same thing as 99 over 1. So anytime you have just a whole number, place a 1 underneath of it and then go on and multiply like you know how to. So as we've learned already, multiply across your numerator. So in this case, 4 times 3. Multiply across your denominator, 1 times 8. So on top, we get 12. On the bottom, we get 8. It's an improper fraction, so of course we need to fix it. So let's take a look at 12 eighths. I know that 8 will go into 12 one time. And if I do that, that's 8. So if I take 8 away from here, that leaves me with 4. And then my denominator is 8. So I get 1 4/8. I can simplify that further down by taking a 4 out of both the numerator and the denominator. So I end up getting 1 1/2 as my final answer. And there you go. Let's try another one. This time, let's do 9/10 times 5. Okay. So again, 5 does not look like a fraction as it stands. However, we can easily turn it into a fraction by placing a 1 underneath of it. Now I simply do 9 times 5, 10 times 1. 9 times 5 is 45. There's that spot on my screen again. That doesn't work. 10 times 1 is 10. 45 tenths. Simplify it down. 10 will go into 45 4 times. 4 times. I end up with 5. 4 times. 40. 10 times 4 is 40. So if I take 4 out of there, I get 5. My denominator is 10. 4 5/10 then can simplify down to 4 1/2. Wow. Much different than writing under the document camera. Okay, so that's a quick overview, quick overview with a couple examples of how you would work with fraction times a fraction, mixed number times a mixed number, and then a fraction and a whole number. Again, one thing I'm going to bring up is if you had a whole number times a mixed number. So let's say we had 3 times 1 7/8. Okay, you're still going to put that 1 under the 3. But remember, with a mixed number, we have to turn it into an improper fraction. We cannot leave it like that. So we have to do our 8 times 1, which is 8, plus 7 is 15. So we end up doing 3 over 1 times 15/8. And that becomes our new problem to solve. Okay? So once you're done viewing the video, of course, the posters are part of your Google slide. If you feel like you need some extra help, reach out to me and I will be happy to do that. If not, scroll down to the end of your Google Slides and the last page is your homework. You are only going to do the problems that are circled. Also, please make sure you are careful. Show your work so you can go back and find your mistakes if indeed you make a mistake. And once again, if you have questions, please reach out. See you later.